Okay, so hey, welcome to another wonderful episode of the Blind Ambition podcast. Our co-host Rick is out. I think he's on vacation or working on important assignments for Blind. So I am going solo with Jeanniey Walden. Hello, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Jack. It's so great to speak with you again.
Yes. So since we last spoke, a lot of exciting things are happening. But let's take a step back. I know we last talked with DailyPay, and maybe you could tell a little bit about being the Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Innovation Officer at DailyPay, and then we could kind of lead into your rising TV career.
Yes, let's
Okay.
do all of that. Great. So I have been so fortunate to spend the last 4 years as the Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer at DailyPay. I started with the company as the first C-suite executive. The founder, Jason Lee, invested very heavily in marketing from the beginning. He knew that as a fintech startup with a brand new idea of making people able to access their pay as they earn it instead of waiting for their paycheck. He knew that was going to take a lot of marketing, a
Right.
lot of education, and he needed to build a brand. So the company was, Series B back then. And I think I was employee 105. So early days, but we collectively built the company to over 1,000 employees at one point, unicorn, over $1 billion valuation, largest share of voice in the on-demand pay or earned wage access marketplace. And, just really were able to help millions and millions of people stay out of financial debt, stay away from predatory payday loans, and really start to get their arms around a sense of financial education and wellness so that they could create a better future for themselves and their family.
That had to be a crazy ride because, you started out, if I recall, J.C. Penney back in the day, customer service, fast forward. And I saw your building, you were nice enough to invite me to speak at an event, and it was amazing, the building. Like, it was beautiful. You looked out New York, downtown. You could see like everything. You could see probably all the boroughs, on a nice sunny day. So like that had to be mind blowing, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, when I first started at
Yeah.
DailyPay, uh, the people were scrunched on couches and the floor because we were growing so quickly. We were running out of space because the demand was so high for this new type of service. But at the same time, the service was just being proven out. And, companies including Target or Kroger or McDonald's were just getting interested in the space. So, when you have a great new startup, it takes a lot of time, a lot of behind the scenes work to build up the ability for your product to function. And that's a key element of any startup. But then you also have to build the brand. You have to build a level of trust. You have to build awareness before, you get those huge successes. And I don't know who said it, but somebody said we were the fastest overnight success after 7 years. People say that all the time. It really does take a lot of back
Yeah.
end work to get to the point where you're a brand new breakout success.
And it must be challenging from the technology point because, for what I understand, is that predominantly for kind of maybe, let's say, frontline workers and other, um, I guess, more blue collar, what would you say, more blue collar type of workers, where instead of getting paid every 2 weeks, you would be able to get paid when you need it. So people who are maybe a little lower earners, lower wage earners, didn't have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money to last, the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing you're doing. But the technology behind it has to be wild because it's not on a 2 week pay cycle, right? If like you need your money in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, you're able to work that out for people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting about DailyPay or any of the on-demand pay or earned wage access providers is if you're working on a B2B2C basis, meaning you're integrating with the businesses to reach their employees, you're also integrating with at least three technologies in their tech stack: their payroll system, their benefit system, and their time and attendance system. And to do that is a big tech lift that requires not just technical capability, but also thoughtful innovation on how any kind of fast growing startup that's very flexible and has a lot of APIs can integrate with traditional systems or even homegrown systems that aren't as flexible and were built, years ago. So I think what the entire fintech space has done is lift the expectation from a technology front for data systems and technology platforms being able to easily integrate with each other to open up these capabilities. Like, look, for DailyPay, people could process individual payroll people could process your pay every day if they wanted to at their organization. But imagine you work at, Kroger, 450,000 employees. Imagine how many payroll people they'd need to have if they had to process payroll every single day. So thank goodness for technological advances that enable us to capitalize on that. And to your point on blue collar workers, can you believe it? It's the average person or family making $280,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck right now, given the rise in inflation, the pre-recessionary impact that we've had, the drop in, all of our in retirement investments and other investments, the whole craziness that's going on with crypto right now. It's really impacted the average person. It's not just blue collar workers anymore.
Yeah.
So solutions like DailyPay are become even more critical.
So is it becoming more widespread now? This type of
Oh, yeah,
feature?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think I spent 4 years at DailyPay, and I would say every year was the breakout year where we saw unprecedented growth year over year. I don't expect that that's going to change anytime soon. It's just, it's a, recessionary proof offer, right? When times are good, you want to be able to access the money that you have to take advantage of great deals, maybe go on a last minute vacation, or maybe pay off some debt with higher interest rates. You refinance your house or buy a new house. When times are bad, hey, you need it to afford the chicken that now costs 87% more than it did
Yeah.
this time last year. So
As the chief marketing officer and chief innovation officer, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, it seemed like a kind of a whole new concept, Daily Pay. So
yeah,
how do you get brand awareness? What kind of marketing campaigns do you do when people, are not used to, okay, you could get paid if you want to on a Wednesday, or you could get paid on a Tuesday. And
yeah,
it just throws everything, what I mean? You start thinking, what's the catch? Like, what am
yeah.
I missing? Is it predatory lending? Am I going to be suckered into something? So how did you go about kind of saying, no, we're just doing this to help people and make it easier for them to make ends meet and get their money, like, because they work for it, get their money when they want it, instead of like
Yeah.
having to wait for a certain period of time just because the company is going to do a payroll that period of
Y
time.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, regardless of the industry that
Yeah.
you're working in, whether it's a small company or a big company, marketing is pretty simple. It comes down to two things: build the brand and drive revenue. I mean, it's really demand gen and brand building. Um, the balance between those two changes dramatically based on the type of initiative that you're focused on. And with DailyPay, in the early days, it was really a lot of brand building and education, because there are always people out there who desperately need money to take care of an unexpected expense. And a couple years ago, that tended to be medical expenses were the most unexpected expenses that were coming in. Everybody knows where you can get the old solutions, those predatory payday loans. No one had ever heard, as you said, of solutions like Daily Pay. So we had to do a lot of education about what is this? Why should you trust it? Why is it different? You have to do a lot of brand building before you can even go out there with a lot of demand gen aspects of it. Now, what's really fascinating is for the marketer of today, the job is very complex to build the right brand strategy, because you've got five different generations of buyers in the market right now. Everybody from baby boomers down to alpha, generation alpha, which is, not even in the workplace. Gen
Right.
Z is in the workplace. So you've got people who are influencers like millennials and Gen Z. They're the ones that are taking your message and making it grow very viral on social channels like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. But then you've got the people that are making the buying decisions that are in those senior and executive roles in the B2B companies that are Gen X and baby boomers that are not necessarily surfing Instagram as much as they normally would be. They're still in the traditional channels. They're reading trade magazines. They're listening to podcasts like yours. They're looking online. They're watching, over the top TV. And so you've got to have an incredibly intelligent blend of brand messaging that gets out there and reaches the right audience with the right message. The key right now, though, is authenticity. And I think you and I have talked in the
Mhm.
past about my little catchphrase, air. I've believed in it since I was an elementary school teacher way back in the day. But, if your messages are not filled with air, which means they're authentic, inspirational, and relatable, they're not going to make a difference. And in today's very busy, crowded world of messages and platforms, that absolutely still holds true.
When it comes to businesses is one thing, but to me, and tell me what you think about this, Jeannie. It seems where there's so many layoffs, downsizings, hiring freezes, job offers rescinded, particularly like in the tech space, but now it's going all over. I think each individual kind of has to have their own brand and marketing plan just to get noticed. Because if, let's say, you're downsized, you can go on LinkedIn and have that little banner, that green banner, hey, open to work. But it's you need more to get noticed. Like,
Yeah.
are there ways that you could take being a marketer, and you've been doing this, for 20 plus, 20 plus
20
years, I
minutes,
guess.
20 minutes. Don't make me sound so old, Jeff.
Like 3 years, right? It's a
Yeah.
delicate thing. You don't want to say so, oh, you've been doing it for 70 years now. So like, are there ways now? Like, so let's say, you just got laid off, from a tech company, you just got laid off from Pepsi, which is
Yeah.
bizarre. I don't know why Pepsi's laying off in this. Like, are you still going to buy a soda even if things are bad? But anyway, so it's across the board. So whether you're with Pepsi, who you just lost your job, or BuzzFeed and you lost your job, or wherever, what kind of things can you take from the corporate space, right? To say, hey, this is what you can do to get noticed, to build your personal brand so that a hiring manager could see you, a recruiter could see you, someone could kind of, reach out and say, oh, wait, I have a great job for you, Jack or Jeannie.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question, and I just want to comment on,
Yeah.
why is Pepsi laying people off? I think, you know, every company is looking at making operational efficiency changes right now. When the market shifted from investors, whether you're in the stock market or whether you're an early stage company looking for more investment dollars, looking at growth trajectory to looking at profitability, I think every business around the world started to look at their operational expenses and use this time as a time to make changes. I mean, think about it, just like for us as individuals, where the cost of interest rates for buying a house or a car have gone up significantly, the cost of money for businesses to keep their businesses open has gone up as well. And if every company has debt, that's how they build their business and run it, even if they're profitable. The cost of that debt's gone up. So every single business is looking to cut out fat that they have and kind of balance that pendulum back to more lean organization. So it's out there for everyone, and it is something that everyone needs to consider. And I start with that because I don't think people realize what's happening to those people who lose their jobs, because the first thing that sets in, obviously, is probably surprise, a little bit of sadness, but then a sense of panic, and unless you've just won the lotto, you've got to look for another job, you've got to find more income. And people really, in those early stages of looking for a job, start to do, what most of us would do, applying for everything. Hey, well, I don't really have any skills to be a veterinarian, but I have a bunny at home, so I'm just going to apply for this job. And while that makes you feel a little better, and you can sleep a little better at night because you're thinking, hey, I applied to 15 jobs today, and some of them are above what I can do, some of them are a couple steps back from what I used to do, but at least I can get a paycheck coming in. um, what people don't realize is behind the scenes, it significantly increases the volume of applications that people get for jobs. And I was just speaking with a friend of mine who's an executive recruiter and said, the advice he's giving to people is, please don't apply for a job unless you're actually qualified, because when a job is open and they get 45,000 applications within 10 days, and they've got one role, the amount of time to go through those applications is not manageable. So, recruiters and teams are turning to bots for review, and that just tosses out your application. It actually makes it harder for you to find a job. So building your personal brand is so critical at this point in time, so that recruiters can find you, because it's much easier. You have a much higher chance of getting a job if someone calls you and says, hey, we're looking for this role. We thought that you'd be a great fit based on your LinkedIn profile, based on the article that you wrote, based on this podcast that we saw you in. But it's tough because a lot of people don't know how to build their brand. It's actually one of the segments on my TV show is how to build your personal and professional brand, because it's also something, just like with a company brand, that takes a lot of time to do. You don't see results overnight. I was talking to, a social media creator, a friend of mine, and she was saying it takes 3 months for any social platform's algorithms to kick in and move you up to where you deserve to be. So you need to start investing in your brand, your personal brand, a good 6 to 12 months before you need to use it. So I'm advising everybody that they get smart about how to build their own brand and start focusing on that now.
So in a way, it's not a fair question for me to ask because everyone's so different. As you mentioned, there's like 5 different generations working under the same roof or working remotely. How do you, generally speaking, like what would you say to somebody if, hey, I lost my job, or before you even lost your job, like you were saying, maybe to be proactive if I'm a little nervous about what may happen, so I want to plan just in case.
Yeah.
How do you start building your brand? How do you start getting noticed? How do you know what platforms to go on and what to write or what to say?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I saw a video on LinkedIn. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but the woman seems smart, so I'm going to say I'm going to believe it. She said that, only 30% of open roles are posted on LinkedIn or any of the job searching sites. So if you're seeing them, you're probably one out of 45,000 that are applying. That said, building your brand is always great to do on channels like LinkedIn over an Instagram, unless you're a creator. And then Instagram and TikTok are definitely great ways to outreach. But, it's the first thing to do is to reach out behind the scenes to your network, and it is a personal choice. I've seen a huge
Mhm.
shift in the way that people deal with losing their job and looking for another job. Some people keep the company where they've worked at up as their current employer because, recruiters like to reach out to people that are already employed versus people that are, looking like they're looking for a job. So that sometimes helps keep the inbound coming in while you get yourself organized. They like to reach out to their network behind the scenes and just say, hey, my job was impacted today. Everybody's job is impacted, so it's not like anybody's looking differently at you, or they're disappointed, or they're questioning your skill. It's just a reality of life. So maybe you can get some introductions. I've also seen a new trend where people are posting very thankful, grateful messages on LinkedIn saying, after X number of years and doing so much, and they use it as an opportunity to not only let people know that they're no longer at that company and they're open to work, but also to recap the things that they've accomplished. So now you're reading a message saying, after 6 great years at XYZ company, I've been able to accomplish these things. I've met these people, I've led these teams, I've built this. It's actually subtly branding you and starting that branding by saying, hey, here's what I've done, so that people that see it that you haven't reached out to can say, hey, wait, I know of a great opportunity. And of course, I'm a big believer in networks and communities helping others. So, I believe that sometimes people reach out, a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I might not have a role, but I might know somebody who does, or pass somebody's name along.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I agree with you because when you see somebody, let's say on LinkedIn that says open for work, but then just leaves it at that, you're left as a recruiter myself running a search
Yeah.
firm. You look and go, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't like, what do you do? What do you back? But as you just pointed out, you give a storyline about, hey, here's what I did. Here's what happened to me. Here's what I'm looking for. So then you go, oh, okay. As a recruiter, yes, you fit with, type of person that I would want to recruit. Or if not, I could point you in the right direction. So you want to kind of give that color on it. Would you also, I've noticed, let's say, so when you're saying to take a back step with like, if you're a creative type, maybe you kind of gravitate more towards, TikTok, or you go to Instagram. So I think maybe one of the things you have to think about is what type of profession you're in and what's the best kind of platform to go on. And then when you go on it, be your authentic self and tell your story. And when you tell your story, would you recommend through video or through content or a combination? What's the latest thing that's happening in marketing? Like it's what it always evolves.
Yeah,
Is it more
yeah, yeah. I
video?
mean, look, not to go back to the traditional marketing
Mhm.
initiatives that really work, but I would say your keywords in your descriptions is probably one of the first things that you need to get your arms around. So if you're on social networks like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, those hashtags and those words are how people find you. If you are a creative director, uh, make sure that people know that if you're looking for a creative director job, because that way people like recruiters are going to go in and you're going to type creative director and take a look at the images, the work, or the videos. The same thing's true of LinkedIn. Even on that front page summary or description, if you are looking for part-time projects or fractional work or interim work, that needs to be listed there. Otherwise, how are recruiters and companies going to know that that's what you're looking for? So when they type in their search phrases, you need to appear. So that's the first thing. But secondarily, I would say, a lot of hiring platforms that I've seen and come in contact with, love to ask for cover letters. And even though there's that easy apply button on LinkedIn, if you don't have a well thought out cover letter, you're going to get looked over. Video never hurts. Video doesn't hurt for your post on LinkedIn because it shows your personality, it shows your skill set, and it shows how capable you are. So I say it's a combination of the three, but it really does depend what type of job you're looking for. If you're doing a procurement role behind the scenes that negotiates payments, I'm not sure a video of you
Mhm.
taking down a vendor to get a 6% discount is gonna make you a top candidate. But well thought out communication of the accomplishments that you can provide are going to be better for you there.
And I want to kind of maybe take a step away from the daily pay, but let's talk about, I understand you're kind of going to be a budding TV star. So how did you make that pivot? Did you go on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I'm looking to have a TV show"? What? How did that
Yeah, I
happen? Or
put
did
the
you go
open
and
to
like
work.
brand yourself out there, like, "Hey, I'm here for somebody who wants to do something really cool on TV. Look at me."
Uh,
What?
it,
What? Let's talk about it.
God. So, I am absolutely the shoe cobbler and the shoe cobbler's children, right? So I'm gonna try and talk about myself. It's such a challenge, but I'm much better giving advice to other people about what they should do in companies. What Look, I love speaking to audiences. As you know, my master's degree from a million years ago is in
Mhm.
teaching. And what drove me to be a teacher was I love to inspire people. It's part of my air, authentic, inspirational, and relatable. And I found that when you can stand on a stage or when you can be on video, you have the opportunity to have your message inspire multiple people. And how cool is that? And what drives me is I love getting those messages after, spoken at a conference, or I've been on a podcast and someone says, "Wow, I listened to what you said and I tried it. And oh my gosh, you changed my life. Thank you so much." Because that just makes me really, really happy. So just out of my personal passions, I think I started to build a brand for myself as a relatable speaker. And I got a call from a producer. I did not have my open
Right.
to work tag on, but I got a call from a producer who said, there's a lot of lifestyle shows out there and there's a lot of finance related shows out there, but there's nothing that talks about the blended life that we all live right now, this kind of work life blur, or, how you manage both your professional and personal brand. How'd you feel about, hosting a TV show that speaks about that and gives people access to other experts who can help them make the most out of the life that they're living, whether that's, by becoming more technically savvy, becoming more financially educated, or building their financial wellness, looking at building their professional or personal brand, or even just seeing what new technologies are out there to help businesses in the workplace. And gosh, how can you turn down the opportunity to tell people that you're a host of a TV show that runs on, you know, actual networks and streams on Amazon Prime nationally? So the TV show's gonna launch a season in spring. It's so exciting. It's gonna be available on a CBS affiliate in Tampa. It's going to be available in New Jersey, and then it's going to be national on Amazon Prime. And I'm super, super excited about it.
I love that. And what's so great about it, and this is, I think, such great career advice, is that putting yourself out there. And for a lot of people, it's hard. Some people, they're comfortable. They're comfortable getting on a stage. They're comfortable trying to give a keynote speech or just having meetings. Others maybe they're a little bit more introverted, or just that's not their thing. But it seems to me, and I've seen this over the last 25 plus years, the people who kind of put themselves out there, even if they're uncomfortable, even if they feel awkward, but they push themselves to do it, it creates opportunities. It's like an object in motion stays in motion. Like if you keep trying, it's not, I don't want to get all woo woo kind of thing, but like if you kind of manifest it and say, hey, I want to do this, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to try, it kind of does happen, because you kind of put yourself out there, you're meeting
Yeah.
people, you're trying, you're failing, you're learning from your failures, you're trying again, and so on. And then before you know it, you get an executive producer who's like, hey, do you want a show? And
Yeah.
then one
Yeah.
thing leads to another one. So you've got to put yourself out there, having speaking engagements, doing different things so people kind of notice you, maybe not with the goal of getting a TV show, but the goal of just, hey, I have something to say and I feel it's helpful for people, and I'm going to keep doing it because I enjoy doing it. But I feel like I'm doing a service for folks by having these talks and speeches and what have you. But then it leads to something. So
Yeah.
that's perfect. And so with the show now, maybe we could talk a little bit about how does it work? How's it set up? Why am I not on it yet? How's this, how are these things? Like, can you tell a little bit like some of the episodes that you already started?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you that I have never been the host of a TV show
Yeah.
before, so I'm learning so much, and I also love learning. But yeah, a season is 12 episodes, so
Okay.
I've learned that, as we all know from watching Game of Thrones, or House of
Yeah.
Dragons, or whatever we're watching. And I'm gonna have 5 guests per episode. So it's 60 guests overall. And now,
Well, that's
we
just
are
a
in
lot.
the
5 guests, and
planning
how
stages.
it's a half hour. How long is the
It's a
each
half
one?
hour. It's a
Okay.
half hour show. So it's 5 guests that are,
Right.
it's kind of like TED Talk style, it's 3 to 4 minutes of a discussion around some topic. And the 4 topics that we're going out with are how to make the most of your work and life worlds. That's balance. That could be, lifestyle. It could be, I really want to have somebody on who can speak about the need to disconnect, because
Mhm.
right now we talk about it as work life balance or hybrid working, and you think about it, and that really means, oh hey, while I'm at the grocery store I'm also on a conference call, or while I'm working on this report I'm also making grilled cheese for my daughter in the background. And that's not good for any of us when we're in a 24/7 on demand for work and for family environment. So it really means it's nice to be reminded on, here's why you should take a vacation, here's how to do it cost effectively, here are the things that you should try to do on vacation to bring that balance back to your life. Don't forget to spend time with your kids or with your family or with your, special significant other. There's also a segment on wellness, and I am a big believer in both mental wellness and physical wellness, and how we balance both. I think anxiety and depression levels right now are the highest they've ever been. They're especially higher in younger generations. How do we manage through that? I was talking to this one woman who I hope will be a guest on the show. She's created an entire set of education around how to help kids or people with autism through nutritional balance, and what are the trigger foods that really cause different things to happen. And I just love that, because think of how many of us know somebody, a family member that has autism, or maybe our friends have kids that have autism, and they're really challenged with it. How can you help make their lives better? Brand building is another segment. Personal and professional brand. What do you do? Look, I've been speaking publicly, gosh, since I was like 15 years old, in musical theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I just love it. It took me a number of years to get to this point. This wasn't something that I was shooting for every single day, but it is a dream come true. And then finally, financial success. What do you need to create that? What does it mean for you? Maybe for you, it just means to be able to make it from one pay period to another without going into debt further. Maybe it means, you're close to retirement. You just lost 35% of your net worth with all of this crazy markets, everything that have been going on. How do you get to a point where you can retire effectively still without staying in the workforce until you're 78? Or even, for that generation of kids, I call them kids, but people that are in their early 20s that have graduated college, and they're doing 3 side hustles at the same time because they can make more money than if they commit to one career and start to build their career there. All these topics are going to come into play. And Jackie, I've already
Uh,
invited you to be on the show. So we just need to figure out what episode you're going to be in on. And then I get to ask you all the questions.
exact. So this is really cool because it's almost like a how-to manual, to kind of improve your career and life. And that's so
Yeah.
important because we don't talk about that enough. And particularly things that for instance, when you mention about, um, let's say the Gen Zs and maybe kind of, I don't want to say all the millennials, but maybe some of the younger millennials, in the sense that they're kind of looking to say, hey, maybe I can make a living on TikTok, or maybe I can make a living on Instagram. And so the traditional ways of earning a living, it seems to be changing. So it's cool that you're talking about that. And then I like the fact that we tend not to think about mental health, emotional well-being, burnout. We kind of put that aside, particularly like I'm a Gen Xer, my generation, like you never talked about that at all. So to bring up these topics is so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love it. And I think, for me personally, when I
Mhm.
was offered this opportunity with the show, um, I thought to myself, "Well, how long will I really be doing this show?" And the show is called Lift Off with Jeanniey Walden.
Mhm.
So it has my name in it. And so when I think about, I'll be doing this show, maybe what, 5 years, 7 years, something like that. What happens when I leave the show? When I'm done with the show, it's got my name on it, so I just can't walk away. Hopefully it's as successful as Regis and Kathy Lee, and I just find
Right.
Kelly Ripa,
Yeah.
to just come on and take my spot. But in reality, it's like a lot of the creator jobs right now. It's a 5 to 7 year initiative where you also have to think about, how are you building your career behind that. So when the show ends and I turn the lights off and the set goes down, what else am I going to do to continue to leverage my skills and ability? And it was interesting because it was a big part of me deciding to do the show was, okay, great, I'll do this and have a lot of fun, but what else am I doing to keep my career moving forward behind the scenes? So there's a career there when I'm done. And that's a conversation that I feel like, everyone in their 20s really needs to have right now. And they really need to start thinking about that. Great. Like, if you can find 100,000 TikTok followers that are engaged, you actually do not have to work. And I've talked to a number of people, number of creators who have quit their regular jobs to become influencers and creators, and they're making more money than they almost double what they were making at their regular jobs. But when I ask them, hey, what's going to happen down the road when TikTok's not a thing anymore, or it's not as successful, it gets overcrowded, what are you going to do next? Everyone stops for a minute because I don't know that they've all thought out where they want to take it from there. It leaves tremendous opportunities to work with big brands, because you think about large brands who haven't been able to wrap their arms around accessing this new social media audience. I think there's great entry points for people to create careers, and I really hope that the show will be able to open people's eyes to that, both businesses and individuals, and really help everybody, just make a better future.
So Jeannie, one of my nephews, he went to university. He wanted to go into publishing. Just kept wanting, like a lot of people, just knocking your head against the wall. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. He worked at Sephora in one of the malls in New Jersey, kind of an upscale area, and he started doing TikToks. He did TikToks, and he's very creative. So he would do TikToks, like he would put on makeup, show what it looks like. And then he would, have these TikToks where you have same person, but then they act different people. So
Yes,
he'll
yes.
be, himself, like putting on all the makeup. And then he'll have a customer who's like a grumpy customer and have this dialogue back and forth. And it's hilarious. It's great. And he started doing it. And I know his mom was like, I don't know. Is this what's going on? Can you make a living? What are you doing? It's like, well, so far I can't get into publishing. I got to do something else. And then he, along with his husband, said, you know what? Let's just focus on it. Let's just drill down. Let's see, because they started getting, a lot of attention. So let's drill down. And now he's killing it. He's getting, I can't remember the last amount of people. I didn't ask him like how much he's making. I should. I'm usually very forward, and I'm surprised I didn't ask him, like, how much you make, doing this? But he seems to be doing really well. Now he's getting these corporate clients. He's getting these advertisers, he's getting the sponsors. So to your point, yeah, it's wild how you could just say, hey, I'm going to just try this. And that's one of the things we don't talk as much. I'm glad you're putting it on your show and we're talking about it here. Like, people get caught into, I just have to do X. I have to, if I be a lawyer, I have to be an accountant, I have to be a stockbroker, whatever. It's like these, narrow silos that you got to do. But it seems in the world we're in now, and the technology that's available on the platforms, who knows? And now with AI, have you played around with GPT chat yet? Or,
Oh yeah.
it's who knows what that's going to lead to? What kind of other opportunities moving forward? And
yeah, there's so much opportunity out there, and I was talking to one organization that allows creators to register on their platform, like actors do for the Screen Actors Guild, and then they match them up to brands, and they were saying, we're so challenged. You've got big brands that want creators because they need to be relevant in that space, but you've got the legal and compliance and corporate division of a large brand trying to negotiate with a 23-year-old on a contract. And it's just a weird exchange because look, hey, I'm not 20 anymore. It's been a while, but
29.
I still have challenges with negotiating contracts on large brands. And
well, they have talent agencies now for this.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's amazing, but there's so much potential because it's not that far from now. And I was speaking at a conference in November in New Orleans about this. It is not that long from now when millennials and Gen Z are going into to the decision-making roles in big business. And as that happens, the way that we make decisions and the types of decisions that we make are going to change dramatically, because these are generations that are not beholden to the way things have been and just do it this way because that's the way that it's always been. And while you'll still have some of that in some areas, the future is so exciting for anybody. And I found a stat a long time ago, so I need to look up what the latest number is, but it said that especially for women, the appetite to take a risk or to follow your dreams drops significantly on your 32nd birthday. Why 32? I don't know. But it goes from 85% of people would say, yes, I'll try something new, or I want to follow my dreams. When you turn 32, it goes down to
Hmm.
21%. And when it goes down to 21%, it's most likely because people have careers, they have families, maybe they just had a few kids, whatever the situation is, they're not willing to take a risk because they're afraid that they'll fail. And what kind of world is that? So it's really great to see that there are so many people out there that are starting to follow their dreams and just try new things out of necessity. And well, inflation and the recession and all of these job cuts, a great resignation, everything that's going on has been really challenging for us to manage through. Everybody's benefiting of it through it. And I think that we're going to see a lot of positivity coming out in the world as a result.
I agree. I love the fact that you mentioned, hey, I might talking about how you'll do the show for X amount of time, but also kind of being open and saying, hey, it could be that maybe after 5 years, hey, put that to rest and do something else. Where oftentimes people are like, no, I'm going to keep doing X forever because they're kind of maybe afraid or nervous or scared to say, okay, I'm going to stop doing X and now do something different. Because you mentioned, say after you're 32, maybe you say, hey, can I do that? I don't, I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have this, but I think that's the world we're in now. And let's say for a lot of the folks on Blind, a big issue now is this. You have a lot of people who worked at Meta, Amazon, and these organizations that were just killing it year after year after year, great, salaries, they would get stock options, RSUs, and well, from DailyPay, like, and everything is great. But then what we see now when the stock prices crater, all of a sudden you thought, oh my God, I'm going to be so wealthy. This is great. Now, not as much. And a challenge is you say, what am I going to do? I'm a software developer. That's what I do. But now I'm still making a nice living. I'm doing a great living compared to, let's say, when you were a teacher, my parents were teachers too, so they didn't make a lot of money, but that's, I think, what we have to start thinking of is it just because it changes doesn't mean it's bad. Temporarily, it's a setback, but then it's saying, okay, what can I do next? How can I take my skills, my background, my experiences, my talents, my knowledge, my network, and try to use that and pivot somewhere else?
Yeah, and it's
Right?
such a learning opportunity. I saw this post on LinkedIn and it said, "This is how much I learned from school. This is how much I learned from my successes. This is
Yeah.
how much I learned from my failures." I mean, and
Yeah.
it's so true. And I've told my kids this since the
Yeah.
beginning. And when they come home and have a bad day or something goes wrong, I say, "Well, let's talk about what you learned from that." And I've been there where I'm like, "Well, I'm never going to make that mistake again." And it's so important. And so for all the people that you see on Blind, and I spend time on Blind as well, just looking at the conversations and in some cases what seems like devastation in the beginning,
Yeah.
there's something really great out there, because especially for people that worked at Meta and that worked at Twitter, think about what you've done. Think about how you have created and changed a society for the better, and look at how you've contributed to that. You've got a lot of value, and you can take that value and you can do something else with it that will help even more people, even if you share your stories. And I'll tell you one thing with stock, right? Especially with exercising options, investing. A lot of times, and you don't know this, there's a lot of stuff you
Mhm.
don't know until you go through this yourselves.
Right.
And that's also some of what I want to bring to the show. And one of the guests that I'm hoping to have on the show in this first season is, a company from the secondary market. So, when you get all this stock when you work for these startups and you get a great strike price and then you leave or the company has an event that you lose your job and you're not employed, you have X number of days to vest the stock. Where are you going to get this money? Where all of a sudden you don't have all this money lying around. If you've lost your job, you need it to pay the bills moving forward. And if you didn't lose your job, it's probably still a sizable amount when you look at taxes. There's great companies out there that will do, what's called non-recourse financing, where they take a bet on the company with you and they put the money up so you can vest your options, you can exercise your options. And